Greetings, Chummer, and welcome back to another RIT90s recap, this time for Season 2, Episode 27, Shipping and Receiving. We cut back to Merlin's continued investigation of the library. Over the course of 5 days, she enlists the help of several of the other Neon Knights in order to try and crack the mysteries of the original Merlin's arcane library. On the first day, she is drawn to an area near the back of the library where she recognized a similar astral aura to Arthur. In the back corner, she finds a large stone plinth with channels that lead into 6 different large glass collection bowls. She pours some of her astral essence into it. It glows, and then a pink liquid drops down from the plinth and into one of the containers. She encourages Percy to try as well, and a small amount of purple liquid pours into a separate container. The next day, she returns with Gwaine to test the altar again. As she approaches, it flashes with blue-gray runes across its surface, but nothing else happens. A moment later, Gwaine hears the sounds of chains whipping and a solid crack as he feels a jolt of energy across his back. In reaction to this, the altar deposits a large viscous blue-green glob of astral energy into one of the bowls. Merlin rushes to investigate the altar again, but it lashes out at her as pink chains trap her hands against the console. She begins to feel her consciousness get pulled into the altar, but Gwaine quickly regains his composure and is able to pull her away. Looking up, the two of them see an echo of Merlin's astral form appear above the altar before it dissipates. Realizing that the altar has been siphoning their essence, Merlin tries to reabsorb the pink liquid that rests in the bowl. After successfully doing so, she gathers up Gwaine and Percy's essence and tosses it towards Gwaine. It smacks against his astral form, and they hear a low, guttural growl emanate from behind him. Concerned by this development, Gwaine decides to end their investigation for the day. On the third day, Merlin enlists Arthur's help as she tries to sort through and catalog all the different books in the library. Arthur offers to have his sprites help read through all the books, but quickly realizes that they aren't able to turn the pages on their own. As Merlin pores over her own stack of books, Arthur tries to change Excalibur into a device that can turn the pages for his sprite, but ultimately fails. One of his sprite gets temporarily sucked into one of the books as an eye opens on the cover and the book begins to speak. The next day, Kay is able to help Merlin discover that the books are not only awakened, but they contain some sort of echo of their author's astral presence, as well as every surface thought the author had whilst composing the book. On a shelf near the altar, Merlin is able to find a book that contains sketches of the altar. On the last day, Lance enters the library upon Merlin's invitation and finds her sitting amongst a pile of books, with one of them talking at her in a very haughty tone about astral transmutation. Together, they discover that the altar is designed to extract one's astral essence into a physical form so that it can be used as a kind of focus for more difficult spells, or as a way to mold your own astral form. Back in the present, the Neon Knights begin to question Paul while en route to the lab. He's initially very confused by the suspicion and thinly veiled hostility the party shows him, but remembers his first impression with the party back at Plausible Deniability and resigns himself to accept their behavior for the moment. Arthur assures Paul that they mean him no harm, but do intend to preserve the security of their base and team. Back at Egg's lab, the party secures Paul in one of the conference rooms and huddles up to determine their interrogation plan, with Arthur and Gwaine as the main interrogators, and Lance and Percy on retainer for an intimidation contingency. However, Paul is decidedly an open book and reveals to the party the details of his exodus from Saterkrupp, as well as the intent behind his heist at the Tacoma District warehouse. Arthur leads the interrogation and asks if anyone knew about his investigation and who was chasing him. Paul says that he was working alone and that Saterkrupp has sent out a Tier 3 elimination order after him, and that for some reason he also has some Rinraku mooks after him. After his flight from Plausible Deniability, Paul fled into the blasted wastes and fell in with an orc biker gang who helped him fend off the corpse. He returned to the city to try and figure out what he had accidentally uncovered and perhaps ingratiate himself with Saterkrupp again. While doing his investigation, he discovered that Penumbra, who is apparently a subsidiary of both Saterkrupp and Rinraku, owns a warehouse on 3rd. The warehouse is a part of some secret Saterkrupp account and has over 100 people working there, but when they go in, they don't come out for days. Their overhead is also minuscule compared to the 2 million Nuyen in monthly revenue that they produce. He was at the Tacoma warehouse to try and hide amongst the Horizon shoe shipments since he knew that they were going to be shipped to the Penumbra warehouse on 3rd. He gained this intelligence from his time tracking shipments and following a truck driver named Bernard. Allegedly, the Penumbra warehouse is always first on his route, and most of his shipments, despite coming from a different corp entity, are almost exclusively received from a place called the Rig. At this point, Percy interjects, trying to see if Paul's investigation into Penumbra has any connection to the remnants of Silver and Lilac's investigation that she was able to salvage from the surveillance van. She asks Paul if he's heard anything about the Silver Bullet's activities in the warehouse district, and he recounts something he heard on Cryogenesis about the Silver Bullet getting into a scuffle with a purple-haired Shadowrunner at a different warehouse that could have also been a part of Bernard's route. This story matches some of the intelligence she gathered from her time with Willie, so she presses further to see if Paul's conspiracy has any connections with that of what the party learned about the Grand Exchange from Philip. However, the name does not strike a chord with Paul at all. Percy's seemingly unrelated interjections earn her a curious look from Arthur. Arthur pulls the group out of the conference room for a moment to confer on the information that they've learned so far, and plan some next steps. He muses that they could most likely recruit Paul to help them continue to keep tabs on the Penumbra Conspiracy, if they could fake his death and get the hit squad off his trail. After formulating a loose plan, they return to Paul to ask a few final questions. The party finishes their interrogation by following up about his co-worker, Gladys, from the email thread that Mordred was able to acquire. Paul tells them about his brief meeting with Gladys before she helped him escape. Arthur decides that Gladys might be a potential hole in Seder Krupp security that they could take advantage of and make plans to send a gift package to the apartment building she owns in the Snowish district. Satisfied with the information that they've gathered, they send Paul off to a guest room under Wembley's supervision. As they start to orchestrate Paul's death and disappearance with the help of Philip, Arthur turns to Percy to have her clarify a couple of things that she brought up during the interrogation. She opens up about the research that she had been conducting on the side about Lilac and Silver's investigation and reported capture. She theorizes that if they were investigating Penumbra, they may have ended up in the same place as Jet and Zane after they were captured on the Delilah. Arthur wonders if the intelligence that Lilac and Silver gathered might be worth rescuing them, and asks Percy if she believes them to be capable allies, which noticeably strikes a nerve. She, not so skillfully, redirects the conversation to the information that they had available in the surveillance van that Silk destroyed. Perhaps they could talk to Silk and see if she discovered anything before making any rescue attempts. Arthur and the rest of the party agree to this loose plan and begin to map out their next steps to unravel the conspiracy. With so many leads to follow, the group notes that their current points of interest are the blue liquid from the Delilah and the gift misexchange, the boxes they stole from the Tacoma warehouse for Skraacha, the oil rig, and then potentially winning over Gladys and questioning Silk. Rescuing Lilac, Silver, and the gang will just simply have to wait. Tune in next episode to find out what happens next. And always remember, the birds work for the bourgeoisie.